Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to the 72nd session of the Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific. We'll be getting underway very shortly, so may I kindly request you to please take your seats for the opening of the senior official segment. May I also request everyone to turn off their phones or set them to silent mode during the meeting to avoid any disruptions in the proceedings. Before we begin, I have a few words about the effort by the Commission to reduce the amount of paper used in conjunction with its sessions. I am pleased to announce, with your support, the Secretariat has been able to achieve a significant decrease in the number of paper prints. At the 71st session, we are able to have a decrease of almost 70% compared to the 68th session. In continuation of the efforts to move towards a paper-smart model of meetings, as in previous years, you should have received at registration a USB flash drive containing the pre-session documents and other useful information about the session. In addition, all documents can be found on the Commission website. Delegates are encouraged to download or print them out in advance of the session. Therefore, only one printed copy of the Commission's documents will be given to each member state and associate member delegation. These may be collected from the Document Distribution Center next to Conference Room 1, just outside this room. You may also use the self-service copy center located in the Delegates Working Area and Meeting Room A. Please also note that all draft resolutions can be downloaded from the website of the Advisory Committee of Permanent Representatives, or ACPR. Please get in touch with your delegation's liaison officers to obtain the username and password. You will also find a number of touchscreen kiosks outside meeting rooms and in public areas that present useful information such as orders of the day, the timetable, and information on side events. We are also pleased to inform you that all meeting rooms and public areas are fully equipped with wireless connections and power sources. In addition, a limited number of laptop computers and tablets are available for loan upon request by member state delegations. Interested delegations can inquire at the registration desk located on the ground floor of this building. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, once again, good morning. We will be beginning very shortly, so if I could one more time ask you to please find your seats and ensure that your mobile devices are either off or set to silent mode. Thank you. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be getting underway in just about 1 minute. So if I could once again ask you to please find your seats and ensure that your electronic devices are set to silent mode or turned off. We will be getting underway in just about a minute or so at this point. Thank you. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, will you please join me in welcoming Ms. Shamshad Akhtar, Undersecretary General of the United Nations and Executive Secretary of the Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific, and Mr. Mitch Shea, Secretary of the Commission. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to now invite Ms. Shamshad Akhtar, Undersecretary General of the United Nations and Executive Secretary of ESCAP, to deliver her opening statement. Ms. Akhtar.
Excellencies, distinguished delegates, colleagues from ESCAP as well, welcome to the 72nd session of the Economic and Social Commission for Asia and Pacific. As this is the first Commission session to be held since the adoption of last September of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, the focus of our discussions will be the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals and their supportive tracks, including mobilization and coordination of finance, trade, investment, science, technology, and innovation, data and statistics, as well as climate and disaster resilience. If effectively implemented, the goals will lay the foundations for Asia-Pacific rebalancing of growth and development towards more sustainable development paths. The 72nd session, in the spirit of this new agenda, focuses on multi-sectoral and multidimensional topics to reinforce the significance of interlinkages and interdependence of goals. Capturing the dynamics and positioning of our region, our emphasis has been to align the work, knowledge and capacities of the Secretariat to reinforce the priorities of member states on the implementation of the goals. In this context, our session will deliberate on regional economic cooperation and integration to ensure the goals are better served through progress on trans-boundary challenges with an emphasis on connectivity, opportunities, the development of new markets, and tapping South-South as well as triangular cooperation, in particular by harnessing financing flows and exploiting partnerships in science, technology, and innovation. The challenges and opportunities of effectively harnessing STI for inclusive and sustainable development are the subject of the theme study for this session, which reflects on the need for balanced integration of STI across the three dimensions of sustainable development, creating an enabling environment for innovation, financing, and nurturing further talent. It also discusses how the United Nations system, development partners, and South-South cooperation should support member states in these areas. In my submission, I will first touch on main elements of implementation of the goals and discuss their reinforcement through our new work on regional cooperation and integration. I will also share some perspectives on what we have done to harness partnerships and your guidance to us in terms of leveraging sustainability in our region. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, let me now touch upon how we plan to prioritize and strategize SDG implementation. As you know, the General Assembly has entrusted regional commissions with supporting member states in their efforts to implement the 2030 Agenda, especially in terms of facilitating effective follow-up and review. While we support national governments in their sustainable development priorities through regional policy consistency and coherence in terms of our core mandates. Achieving integration of sustainable development across dimensions, spheres, and partners will be key to the success of the goals. ESCAP, as you know, is strategically positioned to facilitate this implementation, given its interdisciplinary nature, its broad analytical expertise, its technical cooperation capacity, and its unique convening power in terms of outreach and engagement with governments, civil society, and development partners. Under your guidance, we have also been working to streamline both the conference structure and our work program to better align with these mandates. In view of the transformational change challenges and opportunities of the 2030 Agenda, ESCAP is adopting a prioritized and strategic approach to support implementation of the goals, focusing on value addition. Through our 2016-2017 work program and in coordination with other regional commissions, the Secretariat will therefore be focusing on, 1, strengthening our intergovernmental platforms through higher quality analytical work to promote policy integration, coherence, and consistency. 2, we will be working on regional coordination of national statistical development, indicators for the goals, and supporting follow-up and review processes under the regional coordination mechanism, which involves coordination with the United Nations system across the region. 3, we will be advising on options and modalities for financing of development, trade facilitation, and how to leverage STI along with supportive capacity building. 4, we would be working on translating regional models into global public goods. And 5, positioning ESCAP as a knowledge sharing and learning organization to enable change. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, let me discuss a little regional economic cooperation and integration. Advancing regional economic cooperation and integration has been one of the Commission's most consistent priorities and a long-standing one. Through Resolution 70/1, member states gave the Secretariat renewed impetus to broaden and deepen regional cooperation and integration to reinforce the 2030 Agenda, taking advantage of ESCAP's intergovernmental and cross-sectoral expertise to promote dialogues, undertake new analytical work, and help build member states' consensus on the norms and agreements necessary to advance this agenda. Member states have specifically requested us to work with them to deliver on a vision of a more integrated Asia-Pacific region, identifying following 4 strategic pillars. 1, moving towards the formation of an integrated market. 2, the development of seamless regional connectivity. 3, enhancing financial cooperation. And 4, increasing economic cooperation to address shared vulnerabilities, risks, and challenges. Through our sub-programs, both in the past and in recent years, ESCAP has taken steps to advance these pillars of regional cooperation, especially in terms of addressing disaster risk, regional financial cooperation, enhancing trade and investment, as well as promoting connectivity across the transport, ICT, and energy sectors. Regional cooperation and integration has assumed renewed significance with the adoption of the 2030 Agenda, and by its nature, regional cooperation has the potential to resolve many of the cross-border challenges at the heart of the goals in areas such as climate action, regional connectivity, as well as intra-regional finance and trade. This year, during the ministerial segment on Tuesday, we will hear the perspectives of leaders, ministers, and senior officials from our membership in a high-level dialogue about regional cooperation and integration. To complement that discussion, and in response to Resolution 70/1, the Secretariat has prepared a note to the Commission on enhancing regional economic cooperation and integration in Asia and the Pacific. And I refer to document E/ESCAP/72/5, which provides forward-looking detailed recommendations on implementation of the Bangkok Declaration to catalyze further regional cooperation and integration, and to steer the region towards the goals of poverty eradication and shared prosperity. The Secretariat is also finalizing a comprehensive paper on the status of regional economic cooperation and on its future directions. We are in the process of augmenting our technical work for each of the sub-regions to examine opportunities for harnessing overall integration through more dynamic sub-regional action with your support. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, let me now discuss what you have mandated us to do, the enhanced partnerships for better implementation. Experience in delivering the Millennium Development Goals has reinforced the significance of forging effective and sustainable development partnerships. This is why Sustainable Development Goal 17 makes the specific link between the means of implementation and strengthen partnerships, and why revitalizing ESCAP's strategic development partnerships has been another key priority for the Secretariat over the past year. Among others, we have strengthened for our collaboration with the Asian Development Bank and United Nations Environment Programme, through new memorandum of understanding and signed new agreements in support of our work on tsunami and disaster preparedness with the Government of India and Japan. We also signed a new trust fund agreement with the United Kingdom's Department of International Development to strengthen national statistical systems to produce high-quality economic statistics, which will also be the focus of our capacity building work through the Statistical Institute for Asia and the Pacific located in Japan. Kazakhstan has solicited our support to assist the Pacific Island economies to implement renewable energy policies and solutions. Just last month, we formalized our partnership with China on promoting regional connectivity through the Belt and Road Initiative. ESCAP and the Institute for Global Environmental Strategies in Japan will also be advancing collaboration on environmental issues and sustainable development. We will also be expanding our partnership with the private sector with a new focus on engagement through the sub-regional offices and our sustainable business network. We will be offering training opportunities in areas such as e-waste and responsible business conduct and several other components of SDGs. We will also be starting a new program with the Economic Research Institute for ASEAN to explore the implications of the circular economy. These are just some of the examples of our partnerships. Most of all, we are trying to coordinate more deeply with all other parts of the United Nations system within the framework of coherence and delivering as one at the regional level. It has been a priority for us. This is being nurtured through ESCAP's leadership on the Regional Coordination Mechanism, popularly called RCM, where new partnerships have been identified to work together on thematic topics of direct relevance to sustainable development. The thematic working groups of the RCM will now focus on 7 areas: statistics, resource-efficient growth, sustainable societies, inclusive development, disaster risk reduction and resilience, gender equality and women's empowerment, as well as education for all. The flexibility to add new areas is also built into these changes, and the leadership of some of these thematic working groups will be with other UN agencies. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, the variety and scope of resolutions and decisions before the Commission that I know you've been working very hard illustrate the extent to which member states have already taken ownership of the 2030 agenda and the work that will be required to implement the goals. Among these are draft resolutions that will guide ESCAP's role in support of this implementation. In total, the Commission has 12 proposals before it, which range from science, technology, and innovation for inclusive and sustainable development to disaster-related statistics, strengthening regional transport connectivity, and addressing climate change, to name a few. I would like to thank now member states for their proactive efforts to ensure that through these resolutions, the outcomes of the session reflect the priorities of the Commission and necessary support by the Secretariat for your efforts to implement the 2030 agenda across Asia and the Pacific. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, in conclusion, our region has never been better equipped to tackle the existing and emerging development challenges than we are today. With the 2030 Agenda and the Sustainable Development Goals, we have the blueprints for the future we want. We also have the resources that we need to implement the goals. What is still missing are the action steps to unlock these resources and to meet the targets that have been set in every sub-region, in every country. ESCAP, with your support and goodwill, has undergone the restructuring of its conference structure and stands ready to support you in all of these endeavors. I wish you very fruitful deliberations in the week ahead, and I personally thank you for all your support throughout the year. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Executive Secretary, for your statement. So at this time, I will now turn over the proceedings to the Executive Secretary, who will now conduct the remainder of the meeting.
Distinguished representatives, ladies and gentlemen, with your permission, we will now consider Agenda Item 1C, Adoption of the Agenda. The provisional agenda is contained in document E/72/IL.1. Are there any comments on the agenda? If none, I announce the agenda is so adopted. Distinguished representatives, ladies and gentlemen, with your permission, I will retain the chair for the next item 1B, the election of the bureaus of the senior official segment. The bureaus consent of the chairs and vice chairs of the Committee of the Whole 1 and 2, as well as the Working Group on Draft Resolutions. May I request distinguished delegates to make their recommendations. Australia will nominate the bureaus.
Thank you very much, Madam Executive Secretary, and good morning to all the distinguished delegates here this morning. Madam Executive Secretary, taking into account the importance of the two committees to the whole and the working group on draft resolutions, as well as the experience and seniority of the delegations, I have the honour to propose the election of the following distinguished representatives for the bureaus of the senior official segment this year. For the Committee of the Whole number 1, to the position of Chair, Her Excellency Ms. Maitland Kabua, Permanent Representative of the Republic of Marshall Islands to the United Nations. And as Vice Chairs, the first Vice Chair, Mr. Kim Young-jun, Director General, International Economic Affairs Bureau, Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Korea, and the second Vice Chair, Mr. Kam-in Gichadet, Director General, International Organizations Department, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Lao People's Democratic Republic. And for the Committee of the Whole number 2, a position of Chair, Her Excellency Ms. Saida Muna Tasneem, Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary and Permanent Representative of Bangladesh to ESCAP, and as the Vice Chairs, the first Vice Chair, Mr. K.A. Vimalen Raja, Director General, Department of Trade and Tariff, Sri Lanka, and the second Vice Chair, Mr. Yondan Manlai, Director General, Department of Economic Cooperation, Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And for the Working Group on Draft Resolutions, the Chair, His Excellency Mr. Kirill Barsky, Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary and Permanent Representative of the Russian Federation to ESCAP, and as Vice Chair, His Excellency Mr. Kaganath Adhikari, Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary and Permanent Representative of Nepal to ESCAP. I am sure that the distinguished delegates which I have proposed will discharge their duties efficiently for the successful deliberations of the respective committees and working group. Thank you very much, Madam Executive Secretary.
Thank you very much for your nominations. I presume we will have somebody second it. So I give the floor to China to second the nominations.
Thank you, Madam Executive Secretary. I have great pleasure in seconding the nominations which have been just proposed by our distinguished delegate of Australia for the various positions of the Bureau. I thank you, Madam Executive Secretary.
I revert back to a distinguished delegate of Australia for any follow-up. No. Okay. I give, I'd like to now open the floor for anyone, should there be any further nominations or observations. If none, it is my great pleasure to declare that we have all together nominated the chairs for the Committee of the Whole One, His Excellency Ms. Amat Lian Kabua, Permanent Representative of the Republic of Marshall Islands to the United Nations, and for Vice Chairs, Mr. Kim Yong-jun, Director General, International Economic Affairs Bureau, Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Korea, Mr. Kanin Kitachatet, Director General, International Organization Department, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Lao People's Democratic Republic. For the Committee of Whole Two, Her Excellency Mitsaida Mona Tasneem, Ambassador and Permanent Representative of Bangladesh to ESCAP. And for Vice Chairs, Mr. K.A. Vimal Lenathiraja, Director, Department of Trade and Tariff of Sri Lanka, Mr. Yondon Manliabeer, Director General, Department of Economic Cooperation, Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Mongolia. For Working Group on Draft Resolution, His Excellency Kirill Barsky, Ambassador Extraordinary and Permanent Representative of the Russian Federation to ESCAP. For Vice Chair, His Excellency Mr. Kaganath Adhikari, Ambassador Extraordinary and Permanent Representative of the Nepal to ESCAP. Let us congratulate all the members of the bureaus by acclamation. I now turn to the Secretary of the Commission to make some announcements.
Thank you very much, Madam Executive Secretary, and a very, very warm good morning and welcome to all the distinguished delegates to our 72nd session of the Commission. I do have a few announcements to make, so please bear with me. I would like to begin with an addition to our working schedule today. There will be, as previously announced, an informal session of the Working Group on Draft Resolutions this evening starting at 5 p.m. in Conference Room 2. That is open to all members and associate members. Please note that the working group itself will begin its formal deliberations tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Delegations are also reminded that at this session, the Commission will be electing the governing councils of 2 regional institutions, the Statistical Institute for Asia and the Pacific, as well as the Asian and Pacific Center for the Development of Disaster Information Management. Please note that in accordance with the statutes of these two institutions, the host countries, Japan and the Islamic Republic of Iran, respectively, are automatically members of the Governing Council, and that at this session, the Commission will elect 8 additional members each for the Governing Councils. All members and associate members of ESCAP are welcome to express their interest in joining the Governing Councils by submitting a completed nomination form that can be accessed via the Commission website under the Conference Bulletin Number 2, Election of Governing Councils. These forms should be provided to the Secretariat no later than 12 noon Bangkok time tomorrow, Monday, the 16th of May. For the information of all delegations thus far, the Secretariat has received nominations for the Governing Council of the Statistical Institute for Asia and the Pacific from China, India, Pakistan, the Republic of Korea, the Russian Federation, and Vanuatu. Meanwhile, nominations for the Governing Council of the Asian and Pacific Center for the Development of Disaster Information Management have been received from Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and Macau, China. If I have omitted anyone, please forgive me, and please alert us so that we can correct the current lineup of nominees thus far. I'm also pleased to inform all delegations of the side events that are scheduled this year at the initiative of member states. They include a side event on Monday on inclusive finance, which is hosted by the government of Bangladesh. On Tuesday, there will be a G20 luncheon where a representative of the Chinese presidency of the G20 will make a presentation. On Wednesday, a luncheon event is being hosted also by the government of China on the Belt and Road Initiative. Another luncheon event will follow immediately, which is hosted by the government of Japan on World Tsunami Day. And a side event in the late afternoon will be hosted by the government of Mongolia for landlocked developing countries, and also on the Belt and Road Initiative. On Thursday, the government of Fiji will be hosting an event in the morning on the lessons learned from Tropical Cyclone Winston. And lastly, Thursday afternoon, Mongolia will be hosting a luncheon for landlocked developing countries on the International Think Tank for LLDCs. You can find more information on these and other events on the Commission website and touchscreens that are located around the United Nations Conference Center. I'm also pleased to inform everyone that the Executive Secretary will be hosting a gala reception and dinner Tuesday evening for all participants of the Commission. You should have received an invitation card to the dinner when checking in this morning. Your liaison officers may also assist you in this regard. The reception and dinner will be accompanied by traditional Thai music from the ESCAP Staff Council, as well as performances contributed by some of our member states. Now, in this age of social media, I would also encourage you to follow us on Twitter for all of the latest documents and Commission session news, information, and updates. Our Twitter handle is @UNESCAP, and the hashtag is #CS72. And lastly, as you may have heard prior to the start of our meeting, we continue to move the Commission towards a paper-smart model of conducting business. And I am pleased to announce that with your support, the Secretariat has achieved significant decreases in the number of paper printouts that we've been using for each of our Commission sessions. Compared to the 68th session, there's been a decrease of almost 70% in paper printouts as of last year. As has been mentioned, every delegation should have also received a thumb drive upon checking in, which contains all of the documentation for the session, and documents also are available on the Commission website for your information. Delegates that are requiring a working space during the Commission session can use meeting room A downstairs on the first floor of the UNCC. There you have computer and printing facilities also at your disposal. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for your attention, and I will revert back to the Executive Secretary now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mitch. Before I adjourn this meeting, I should like to inform all delegates that the two committees of the whole will convene under their respective chairs in conference room number 1 and 2, respectively, to continue the consideration of agenda item number 3. With your permission, I now declare the meeting adjourned. You know what had happened? I had my